The story of Jesus Christ's death is one of the most impactful and significant events in human history. It is narrated in the Gospels with details that make us reflect on love, suffering, and redemption. In this video, we will explore how Jesus died, from the moments leading up to his arrest to the painful conclusion at Calvary. It all began on the night Jesus gathered his disciples for the Last Supper. On that occasion, he broke bread, representing his body, and shared wine, symbolizing the blood that would be shed. After the meal, Jesus went to the Garden of Gethsemane to pray. There, in deep anguish, he cried out to the Father, saying, "If it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will." Matthew 26:39. The emotional intensity was so great that Jesus sweat drops of blood. This phenomenon, called hematidrosis, can occur during extreme stress. It demonstrates the psychological suffering Jesus endured even before being arrested. Shortly after, Judas Iscariot, one of the 12 disciples, arrived with an armed crowd to seize him. Judas' kiss was the prearranged signal to identify Jesus. He was taken to the Sanhedrin, the Jewish religious council, where he faced false accusations and an unjust trial. Peter, one of his closest disciples, initially tried to defend him, but later denied knowing him 3 times. This betrayal was one of the many emotional sufferings Jesus experienced that night. After being interrogated by the religious leaders, Jesus was brought before Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor. Pilate found no guilt in him, but succumbed to the crowd's pressure, who demanded his crucifixion. Before that, he was brutally scourged. The whip used by Roman soldiers had pieces of metal and bone that tore into the flesh. In addition to the physical violence, Jesus endured humiliation. He was crowned with thorns, given a purple robe, and mocked as they said, "Hail, King of the Jews," John 19:3. The crown of thorns pierced his head, causing intense pain and bleeding. After the scourging, Jesus was forced to carry his own cross to Mount Golgotha, also called Calvary. The distance was short, but the weight of the cross, combined with extreme exhaustion and his injuries, caused him to collapse. Simon of Cyrene was called to help him carry the cross. At Calvary, Jesus was nailed to the cross. The large, pointed nails were driven through his hands and feet, securing him to the wooden structure. Crucifixion was one of the most cruel methods of execution used by the Romans, designed to cause prolonged suffering. Suspended between heaven and earth, Jesus endured not only physical pain, but also the mockery of those around him. Some said, "If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross." Matthew 27:40. Even in the midst of such suffering, Jesus prayed, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." Luke 23:34. For 6 hours, Jesus hung on the cross. As time passed, his breathing became increasingly difficult. The position on the cross forced the body to press against the lungs, requiring him to push up on the nails to breathe. At noon, something extraordinary happened. The sky turned dark. For 3 hours, darkness covered the earth, a sign of the gravity of that moment. Around 3 in the afternoon, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Matthew 27:46. These words expressed the weight of humanity's sins that he bore. Shortly before his death, Jesus declared, "It is finished," John 19:30. With this phrase, he completed the mission of redemption he had begun. He then gave up his spirit to the Father, saying, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." Luke 23:46. At the moment of his death, the temple veil was torn from top to bottom, symbolizing that the way to God was now open to all. There was also an earthquake, and some tombs were opened, testifying to the power of Jesus' sacrifice. The Roman soldiers present were terrified. One of them exclaimed, "Truly this was the Son of God." Matthew 27:54. Jesus' body was taken down from the cross by Joseph of Arimathea, a secret disciple, and placed in a new tomb. A large stone was rolled to seal the entrance, and Roman guards were stationed to ensure no one tampered with the tomb. But the story does not end here. Jesus' death was the price paid for humanity's sins, but his resurrection 3 days later brought hope and eternal life to all who believe. The death of Jesus is not merely a historical tragedy, it is an unparalleled act of love. It reminds us of the sacrifice made so that we could have access to reconciliation with God. His total surrender continues to inspire millions of people to this day. If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel, share this video, and leave your comment. Together, we can spread the message of Christ's love to even more people.